All right, today we have a 2009 Mazda 3. What we're going to be doing is replacing the AC compressor. The AC compressor is actually locked up on the car, so it's doing nothing. It's not able to work that way. We're of course in Florida here, so middle of summer, can't go without AC. So we're going to go ahead and get started on this. Now the first thing we did, we brought it down to our buddy's shop, and he's got a evacuation machine. We let him draw out all the refrigerant out of the system, so that way we're able to open up the system without leaking the refrigerant out into the atmosphere. So we'll go ahead and get it up in the air. The compressor is accessed underneath, so we'll show you underneath there. All right, so the first thing we're going to do is drop down the skid splash shield underneath here. The AC compressor actually sits right up above this corner of it. So there's a bunch of 10mm bolts we'll go ahead and drop down. All right, so we got our main shield down. Now here's one more little side shield we're going to pull down. It's got two 10mm, and it looks like a plastic push pin thing will pop out of there. So I'll go ahead and pull that down. All right, now the belt on this particular car is called a stretch belt. There is no belt tensioner or anything to remove it. On these belts, once you take it off, you are not supposed to reuse it. You always want to make sure you have a new belt on hand. And because of that, you can actually just cut the old belt off. So we'll just go ahead and cut it off. There's our old belt. We got our new one already set aside. At this point, you can see the outer pulley spins fine on the compressor, but the compressor itself, this is supposed to spin right here, and that's just locked up tight. So yeah, you can see that the compressor's definitely shot. All right, so what I'm going to do next is drop down this shield. It's got four 12mm nuts that hold it up. All right, so now you can see the actual compressor itself. On the back side here, we'll have to rearrange the camera. You'll see the two lines, the AC lines going into it. All right, so now you can see on the back of the compressor the two lines. The small one is the high pressure line. The big fat one is the low pressure line. You've got two 10mm bolts that hold this in. Now again, we've already had the system drained. You don't want to take these off until you have all the refrigerant out of the system. So I'll go ahead and take these guys off of here. Now you can't really see it but on the tape here, but you follow this wire up, there is a connector buried up in there that you have to disconnect. So I'm just reaching up in there now doing that. Okay, so that's down. We've got our lines disconnected and the electrical connector disconnected. So now I can go ahead and take off the actual bolts holding the AC compressor on. Now with this last one, just hold the compressor up because it'll come down after this. And you just drop it out of the car. There we go. We have our old compressor out. You can see again, this clutch is just completely locked up on the front of the thing. So we'll go ahead and get our new one all ready. And I'll be back with you in just a second. All right, so before I put the new compressor in, we're gonna go ahead and replace the O-ring seals on the line. Anytime you do a job like this, you always wanna put new seals on there. So they just pop off like that, and I will match up the new ones real quick, which I should have done beforehand. All right, so we have our new O-rings we're gonna put in place. These just pop onto the lines here. And the last thing we want to do is to lubricate the O-rings with a little bit of AC oil. So just dab some on your finger. And just kind of spread it on there. Just make sure the O-rings make a nice seal when you go to put the new compressor in. All right, so here we've got our new compressor that we got from Auto Parts Direct to You, or Apdty. I've already got the compressor comes with plugs or covers that plug up the AC lines here. I took those off. I'm gonna try to do this pretty quick because the oil that's in here, oh yeah, that's one thing I wanted to mention. You always wanna make sure the compressor has oil in it before you install it. This particular one did come with the oil already in it. So it's just something you want to double check. If it does not come with oil, then you have to add some. So I'm going to try to be quick to prevent losing oil when I go to tilt this thing up. I'm going to get one bolt started, and then I'm just going to go ahead and jump right to the lines. Looks like it's holding. Okay, the oil's not leaking out, so we're okay. Yeah, so now I'm putting the lines on here. They just pop on and you put the 10mm bolts back in. All right, so we've got our lines connected. Now I'm just going to run the wire back up through here and plug it in. All right, so now it's plugged in, got the lines bolted on. We'll go ahead, before I put the shield back on, I'll go ahead and put our belt on. I'll show you how to install a stretch belt, hopefully, because I've never done one myself either. Okay, so this is our stretch belt, and hopefully this goes fairly simple. They can be kind of tricky. We have this specialty tool which is designed to help feed it on. So what we're going to do is just feed it up over the top of the crankshaft here. Oh, I'm sorry. Let's see. There we go. Well, I guess this is going to be fun. All right, we're going to start with it on the AC compressor fully. And we're going to slide our tool up and around, and it should start to catch here in a minute. Now as it's going, what I'm going to do is rotate the crankshaft. I've got a 21 millimeter socket on the end of the crankshaft here, and I'm going to rotate this around and make sure that the belt stays on the AC compressor as I go. And just keep going with it. Oh, popped off a little bit there. There it goes. Oh, let's see what happens here. All right, well, the belt's almost on. We're groove off. We'll see if it'll. I'm gonna keep going and see if it'll straighten itself out here. Gonna push on the belt. There we go, she's going. All right, that's it, not too bad. You can see our new belt installed there. All right, so next I'm gonna go ahead and put our shield back up. Okay, so our next step, what we're going to do is we are going to flush out the AC condenser. Anytime you do a big job like this, replacing the compressor, you've always got to flush out the system. Reason for that is you can get little metal particles throughout the system, and you want to flush it to make sure you get all that out so it doesn't get sucked into your new compressor. In fact, many of the compressor warranties require proof that you flushed it. So what we're going to use, now we're going to use this tool, which is it's a tool specifically for flushing AC systems. You don't necessarily have to do it with this. All this does, we're going to pour the flush solvent into this jug here. This top piece comes off. So the flush solvent goes in there, and then we can just spray it right into the line going into the condenser. And just you keep going until you get nothing but air, and then you just flush it real good with air after that. So I'm going to go ahead and fill my container here up with some solvent, AC flush solvent that we have. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and disconnect these two lines. These two lines are the ones that go into the AC condenser. Again, it's got two 10 millimeter bolts holding these on. Now we'll just pull the lines out of the way here. And you can see the two inlet and outlet for the AC condenser. So what I'm going to do is, using our filled up pressurized thing, just hold it, in one of these inlets or one of these holes here, and blast the air and solvent through there. I'll show you that here in a second. Now I'm going to cover the outlet with a paper towel so it doesn't blast up and get all over the car. It's still going to make a little bit of a mess, but you just want to try to prevent it from going all over the car. So you should see the flush solvent start coming out here any second now. There it goes. So you can see when I do that, you can see the flush solvent coming out the other line. So I'm going to cover this back with the paper towel and just keep going with it. I've got a catch bucket underneath to catch all this solvent. Now we just keep feeding air through it until we get all the solvent out of the condenser. So if you don't have one of these tools, what you would use is just a regular air blow nozzle, and you would pour the solvent into the hose first, and then you would just blast air through until all the solvent is out of there. So I'll just leave this going for a minute here. Okay, and that's how you flush out the condenser. We can go ahead and replace our O-rings on these lines now and reinstall those. What you want to do, you want to flush out the individual lines and the evaporator. So what we'll do is disconnect that from the firewall and flush through there. But it's the same procedure that you saw here on the condenser. So we'll go ahead and get all that done and get this reattached, and we'll show you then how to replace the dryer. All right, so now we're inside the car. We're going to access the expansion valve. We're going to go ahead and replace that as well. It's always a good idea to do that while you're working on or when you're replacing the compressor. So our first step, the expansion valve actually sits up inside the dashboard up here. So we're going to be removing this trim panel, and the whole glove box assembly. I think that'll give us access to it. I'm not sure why we need to remove this. Oh, that comes off with it. All right, so what we're gonna do, this panel just snaps up. It's just got these little clips that snap it in place here. So we'll pull that up. And then this kick panel here is the same. You just kind of pull on it and it will come free. So we'll set that aside. Let's see. Now our next step is the glove box. First we need to get this trim panel piece off of here, and that again just snaps on. So just kind of pop it off. And actually we can leave that one side connected. So all we have to do is be able to get to these screws right up here. We've got, oh yeah, one other thing I wanted to point out. We have disconnected the negative battery terminal to kill all the power in the car, which is something you want to do as well. So we'll go ahead and take out these screws here. And is that? Looks like that all just kind of snaps together. So just kind of work around. There we go. And the whole glove box comes right out. I'll undo this light. Really? Okay. I'll unscrew this light. And there's our glove box out. Does the light help? Probably not. Ready? Okay, so underneath here, we're gonna drop this, this little cover here, which is what you drop anyway to get to your fuse box if you ever need to. So we'll pull that little cover out. Now up under here, you probably can't see it, but there's two little twist screws. You just turn them, and then this whole module here drops down. You can kind of wiggle this out of here a little bit. You can see that's actually where your fuses are if you ever need to access them. So I'm going to take this whole thing out of our way. This one connector needs to come undone. There's that one and that one. So now those connectors are out of our way. We're just trying to gain access to the expansion valve, which is a little bit further up in here. I hope. I think I feel it. Yes, yes I do. Now there's some insulating foam stuck on the expansion valve here. I'm just peeling away. Which I'll just stick that back on when we're all done. And I'm just going to peel away this foam, and then in just a second I'll let the camera get up in there so you can see what's going on. So we'll be back with you in a second. All right, so what you're looking at there, that 10mm bolt holds the lines going into the expansion valve. The expansion valve is directly behind that. So once I take off the 10mm bolt, the lines will come off and we'll be able to access the expansion valve, which is then held on by two hex Allen bolts. Okay, so here you can see I've got the old expansion valve out next to the new one. Basically the way this worked, I was sitting up in the car like this, up inside there. Had the two lines come in and bolt to right here. So there was that 10mm bolt you were kind of able to see there, we showed you. So once you take that 10mm bolt out, you're able to get those lines off and kind of twist them out of the way. Once you do that, there's two of these little hex head guys sitting in here. Now that actually mounts it to the evaporator. Once you take those off, then the whole expansion valve pops off. There's a couple O-rings on the lines up in here and on the compressor. You're not going to be able to see it, so we're just not even going to show it. But we're going to go ahead and just replace those O-rings and bolt our new expansion valve on and put everything back together the same way it came apart. And we'll meet you back under the hood in just a little bit. All right, now we're going to replace the dryer. It's up under here. We've already taken off. There's a panel here, just had some 8mm bolts. We took this panel off, and you can see it's attached to the condenser right here. So that's our old dryer. Real simple, two 10mm bolts. This bottom bolt, what it does, it holds the lines to the dryer. So I'll go ahead and take that one out first. And the next one is this bolt on the side here. Which that one just mounts this clamp that clamps onto the dryer, and it mounts it firmly to the condenser. So now once you have both of those undone, see our clamp slid down. There we go. Dryer just pops out. That's our old dryer. We got our new one. Again, we got it from Auto Parts Direct to you. And I'm going to go ahead and change the O-rings on these lines as well. And we'll be right back with that new dryer. We'll be right back, right after these commercial messages. All right, so we've got our O-rings replaced, and we're going to install our new dryer. The reason, now one thing we did, we saved the dryer for the very last thing. Reason for that, this has a desiccant inside, which absorbs moisture. So the very last thing we want to do is pop off these, we want to hold off popping these seals off until the very end, because you don't want them exposed to the humidity for very long. And here in Florida, it's extremely humid right now. So we are going to get this up in place, and I'm going to pop these things off and get them on our lines here. So you'll see that. I don't know if you can see that. So there, now it's set in place. And I'll go ahead and get our bolts started for that holds the lines in. I'll snug that up and tighten it up here more in just a second, once we get our bracket installed. Now the bracket we put up in here and get our bolts started. Tighten down this bolt the rest of the way. All right, so now I'm going to go ahead and put all our splash shields back up, and then we'll go back under the hood and hook up our vacuum gauge, or vacuum pump. Okay, next up is the, well, we've got all our lines reconnected now. Everything's tight and sealed. We've got our compressor installed, our new dryer, our new expansion valve. The whole system's been flushed. So our next step is going to be to vacuum out the system. What we've got here, this is a vacuum pump. You can pick these up they're not too expensive if you don't have one, or you can borrow one from somebody, but you definitely need it whenever you open the AC system before you refill the refrigerant. And we've got it hooked up to our manifold gauges, which then hook up to the low side and the high side lines on the car. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and kick on our vacuum pump, and with that running, I'm going to open up both our high pressure and low pressure valves, and then open up the gauges on the manifold hoses. And that will allow the vacuum to reach into the system. So we're going to let this tester run for about a good, usually about 45 minutes, or if you can do it even longer, the better. So we're going to let this run for a while, and we will be back with you to refill the system. All right, so we're going to go ahead and put the glove box back in. I'm going to leave the, I can pop the fuse panel up afterwards, so I'll start with the glove box here. First thing I got to do is reconnect the light that we disconnected, which this little panel fits on like so, and then the light. Oh, it's backwards, isn't it? Goes like this. There we go. Okay, so now the glove box itself, we'll pull this panel back up. This whole assembly just kind of slides up back in here. And you just kind of go around and tap it, and all the snaps will go back in their place. And just got to put the screws back in up here. That's all back. So now our kick panel. That guy snaps in place. And last is our scuff plate, which also just snaps together. Oops. You know what, I realized the weather strip has to go behind the kick panel here. So let's pop that back off. There we go. Now, and then our scuff plate. Now I'm purposely leaving the fuse box down until we go to do our final test after we charge the system. The reason for that is I'm not sure, I haven't checked it yet, but there's a chance that when the compressor seized up it'll blow the clutch coil fuse. So I'm just leaving that down just in case we have to change a fuse. If not, it slides right back up in there, just like that, and you just pop everything back together. So that's pretty much putting the interior back together. So now we'll just go ahead and recharge the system. Okay, so our vacuum is run for about 45 minutes now. So we're gonna go ahead and turn off our vacuum pump. I've already got my valve shut off here. And I'm gonna go ahead and hook up our first can of refrigerant. My knob broke off, so instead I have a pair of vice grips working it. So we'll go ahead and get this ready to charge. What we'll do is we'll turn off the high side. All right, no, I'm sorry. We'll turn off the high side up here and open the low side. And I'm going to go ahead and open up our can of refrigerant, and that will let the refrigerant start flowing into the system. Now the car's off right now. We're going to have to turn it on here in a minute. I'll get as much as I can in with the car being off. And that's pretty much it. You can see the pressures have equalized, and I can feel there's no more refrigerant coming out of the can. So at this point, I'll go ahead and close the valve on the can again, and we're going to start the car. Got to reconnect my negative battery terminal. All right, so our compressor did come on. You can see the low pressure has dropped. So at this point, I'm going to go ahead and open up the can of refrigerant and let it start sucking in the refrigerant. Now, as it's going, I'm going to keep the can upright. You don't want to let it suck liquid in. If you were to turn it upside down, you'd be sucking liquid directly in, and you can damage the compressor that way. So with it held upright, I'm going to go ahead and let it just draw all the refrigerant out of this can until this can is empty. Now this car holds a total of about 1.1 pounds of refrigerant. Each can is 0.75 pounds. So it's going to take about a can and a half to get the pressures where they should be. So I'll go ahead and let it take all of this can, and then we'll tap into one more from there. All right, so the system is nice and cold now. It's about 92 degrees inside the shop here, and it was feeling really good inside the car. So I would call this a success. The AC was not working at all, of course, when the car came in. So we believe they're going to be very happy with the results. So I'm just disconnecting everything right now. And we're going to go ahead and button her up. And remember, we got all our parts from Auto Parts Direct to You, which is at apdty.com. Don't forget to check us out on Facebook at facebook.com/apdty. Subscribe to us here on YouTube, and we're always trying to put out new videos. Hopefully you'll get some use out of them. And other than that, we are all set. So we're just going to button up this car